Imagine an empire so vast it stretched from the mountains of India to the shores of Greece. An empire so organized, so tolerant, and so powerful, it made Rome look like a late bloomer. This is the story of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. You've heard about Rome. You've heard about Egypt. Maybe even the Mongols. But Persia? It's the forgotten superpower. And yet, it influenced almost everything, from human rights to road systems to religion. Today, we're diving into the incredible, underrated history of the Persian Empire, the first true global empire. Let's rewind the clock to around 550 BCE. Before there was an empire, there was a tribe. The Persians were one of many Indo-European nomadic groups who migrated into the Iranian plateau around 1000 BCE. For centuries, they lived under the shadow of another powerful people, the Medes. The Medes controlled a powerful kingdom in what is now northwestern Iran. The Persians, by contrast, were a small vassal state, centered in a region called Parsa or Persis, near modern-day Shiraz. But everything would change with the rise of one man, Cyrus II, or, as history would remember him, Cyrus the Great. Born around 600 BCE, Cyrus was ambitious, charismatic, and, perhaps most importantly, a master of strategy. According to legend, Cyrus was raised in secret after a prophecy warned the Median king that this child would one day overthrow him. Prophecy or not, that's exactly what happened. In 550 BCE, Cyrus led a revolt against his overlords, the Medes, and won. But he didn't stop there. Over the next 20 years, Cyrus the Great built the largest empire the world had ever seen, conquering Lydia and modern Turkey, Babylon and Mesopotamia, and stretching all the way to the Indus River in modern Pakistan. But here's what made Cyrus different. He didn't burn cities to the ground. He didn't erase local religions or languages. He respected the people he conquered. When he entered Babylon in 539 BCE, he didn't loot it. Instead, he freed thousands of captive people, including the Jews, who had been exiled by the Babylonians. This act is recorded on the Cyrus Cylinder, often called the first declaration of human rights. I returned to these sacred cities, their sanctuaries I restored, and all their peoples I gathered and returned to their homes. That was 2,500 years ago. Cyrus the Great was not just a conqueror. He was a nation builder. After Cyrus's death, his son Cambyses continued expanding the empire, even conquering Egypt. But it was under Darius I, also known as Darius the Great, that Persia reached its true golden age. Film projector, B-roll, stylized map expanding to show Egypt, Persia, India, Central Asia. When Darius came to power in 522 BCE, the empire was vast, but unstable. His genius wasn't in conquest, but in organization. Darius divided the empire into 20 provinces, or satrapies. Each satrapy had its own governor, called a satrap, who oversaw local taxes, justice, and security, but still answered to the central king. To make it work, Darius created a standard currency, silver coins called darics, a unified legal system, and a massive network of roads, including the legendary Royal Road, stretching over 1,500 miles. With this road, a royal messenger could travel from Sardis to Susa in just 7 days, a journey that took ordinary people over a month. The Greeks were shocked. Herodotus, the father of history, even wrote about it. Neither snow, nor rain, nor heat, nor darkness of night prevents these couriers from completing their appointed course with all speed. Sound familiar? That quote inspired the U.S. Postal Service motto over 2,000 years later. But Persia wasn't just efficient, it was deeply spiritual. The Persian religion at the time was Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic faiths. Founded by the prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, the religion taught of a cosmic struggle between good, Ahura Mazda, and evil, Ingra Mainyu, and that humans had free will to choose their path. Its ideas of heaven and hell, judgment after death, and moral dualism would later influence Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The Persians respected other religions, too. Unlike many conquerors, they did not impose Zoroastrianism on their subjects. Whether you were Greek, Egyptian, Jewish, or Babylonian, As long as you paid taxes and didn't rebel, you were left in peace. This tolerance, combined with good infrastructure, trade, and fair laws, helped Persia become the most diverse empire in ancient history. Over 50 million people from India to Ethiopia lived under the rule of the King of Kings. No great empire lasts without a challenge. And for Persia, that challenge came from the west. A group of fiercely independent city-states on the Greek mainland. In 499 BCE, the Ionian Revolt erupted. Greek cities in Asia Minor, under Persian rule, rose up with help from Athens. To Darius, this was more than rebellion. It was an insult. Studio microphone, he responded with force. In 490 BCE, the Persian army crossed the Aegean Sea and landed near a place called Marathon. There, they met a much smaller Athenian force, who shockingly defeated the Persians in what became one of the most famous battles in history. After the loss, Darius vowed revenge, but died before he could finish the job. His son, Xerxes I, took up the cause. In 480 BCE, Xerxes launched one of the most ambitious invasions the world had ever seen. He built bridges of boats to cross the Hellespont. He marched with over 100,000 soldiers, wore elephants, and a navy to match. But Greek resistance would become the stuff of legend. At Thermopylae, 300 Spartans, along with thousands of Greek allies, held off the Persian army for days. Ultimately, the Greeks pushed the Persians back, defeating them again at Salamis, Naval, and Plataea, land. Persia never conquered Greece, but neither did Greece conquer Persia. It was a stalemate of civilizations, and it would define the balance of power for centuries. To the Greeks, Persia was a terrifying force, the other exotic, opulent, and disciplined. To Persia, the Greeks were a minor annoyance on the edge of the empire. But soon, that would change. Fast forward to 334 BCE. A young Macedonian general named Alexander crossed into Asia Minor and began the final chapter of the Persian Empire. In just 10 years, Alexander the Great defeated the Persian armies at Granicus, Issus, and finally Gaugamela, where Darius III was overthrown and murdered by his own men. Alexander marched into Persepolis, the jewel of the empire, and burned it, possibly as revenge for Xerxes' sack of Athens a century earlier. It was the symbolic end of an era. After over 200 years, the Achaemenid Empire was gone, but its influence? That would never disappear. Though Alexander may have conquered Persia, he embraced its culture. He wore Persian robes. He married a Persian noblewoman. He even adopted elements of Persian court ceremony. Film projector, B-roll, artwork of Alexander with Persian attire, fusion imagery of Hellenistic and Persian culture. The Persians may have lost their empire, but their ideas lived on. In fact, Persia set the blueprint for how to rule an empire. Multi-ethnic governance, standardized currency, and roads, respect for local religions, a central bureaucracy and tax system, even the concept of human rights. Their religion, Zoroastrianism, would go on to influence the Abrahamic faiths. Their art and architecture would inspire styles across the Islamic and Indian worlds. And their history, though forgotten by many, laid the groundwork for what we now call civilization. And perhaps most ironically, the mighty Roman Empire, centuries later, would spend hundreds of years trying and failing to conquer Persia's eastern successors, the Parthians and the Sassanids. Because while empires may fall, ideas endure. So the next time you hear about empires that changed the world, don't forget the one that came first. Cyrus, Darius, Xerxes. The Persian Empire was more than conquest. It was a vision of unity, tolerance, and progress 2,500 years ahead of its time. Backhand index pointing right. What surprised you most about Persia's story? Let me know in the comments. I read every one. Direct it, and if you want more forgotten history brought to life, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Brain, this is just the beginning. Thanks for watching.